Another stop on the Bloggers Convention tour is a garden that's quite different than the one we just saw. In fact, this garden's quite different than most gardens that we film. The backbone of this garden is built on some incredible hardscape, stone walls, sculpture. It has a very playful and whimsical feel about it. And today we're going to meet the gardener and homeowner, Ms. Damaris.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Damaris, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you for being here. Welcome to Wamboldtopia.
This is wonderful. As we were driving up, there was no doubt about the fact that this was your home, and it's a beautiful place and a really unusual garden.
Thank you.
I want you first just to tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired your love of gardening.
I'm originally from Germany, and my love for plants and gardening didn't really start until I was in America. I used to borrow books from the library and literally fantasize about having gardens like this. And then when I moved to Asheville in 1999, actually, is when I really started working on this place here. It all started with a small formal herb garden, a geometric herb garden, and has evolved since then.
This looks like a very challenging site, and I'm sure when you first got here, there were quite a bit of challenges you had to overcome.
Yeah, very much so. Number one, the lot is very steep. It was a bare yard. The house had white vinyl siding on it, and the front was extremely steep, nothing but weeds. There weren't even steps that led to my car.
So how's it evolved over the last 10 years?
Well, little by little. Actually, it really started to change when Ricki came into my life. He's a stonemason and built the very first pond and hasn't stopped since. So we have divided this property into sections through the hardscape mainly. And that was also a way to make this slope a little bit more manageable. And then each section just offered its own potential to do something with it and to get creative with plants and sculpture and stones, and little by little transformed the lot.
I can tell you guys have put a lot of heart and a lot of passion into your garden. The stonework is amazing, and it is a very, very central and important part of this garden. I know you're very proud of it. Let's show it off.
Great.
Damaris, it's so impressive to me the tremendous amount of work that you guys have done in a very short period of time. And as we're starting into your garden, I want you to talk a little bit about the transformation of this space, and specifically the way that you've integrated your art and your sculpture and your love of art into the hardscape.
I've been very inspired by the masonry that Ricki brought into my life. So I got to explore concrete, and I get to weave concrete actually into some organic shapes, from leaves to birds to rude-looking formations. It's been quite inspiring in this way. And Ricki weaves everything together. He ties in the headstones and the bricks and some of my sculpture work, and has actually also learned to sculpt in addition to the masonry.
Wow. I think some of his most impressive work is the stonework that's on the residences.
Yes, so the two buildings are quite different. The building that we added is wrapped in natural stone and has mixed in headstones and brick and a variety of things. And then the upper residence is being wrapped with a different type of rock that is manufactured and gives a lot of opportunity to literally paint in rock and paint in concrete. And I get to paint literally in sculpture. So I consider myself and ourselves very fortunate.
I'm sure it must have been a tremendous undertaking to try to tame a really, really steep sloped site like this. How did you guys go about it?
It was quite an undertaking. Initially, we had to bring in materials bucket by bucket, carried those up the hill. But it all started by having to get a path to even come up there, and thus came the stairs. And then we needed switchback trails in order to come up here with wheelbarrows because we got really tired of carrying everything up by hand. So Ricki built the trails. That in turn kind of chopped up the land in manageable areas that I could then plant, because prior to that it was really overwhelming. It was a steep slope, very weedy, very grassy, very dangerous to mow, and I'm really glad we got rid of the grass.
Yeah, indeed. Well, there's nothing fun about mowing, and of course, this is without a doubt significantly more attractive. I do want you to talk a little bit about your water features here that are really nice and are definitely doing a great job of tying in different elements of the garden.
Yeah, absolutely. The upper pond is actually the reason that Ricki and I met. I was interested in feng shui and wanted a water feature, and he showed up in my life beautifully. And he really got into that and was really obsessed with this whole pond project. It's like a forever science project, really. So he built the lower pond, and then was very much inspired to join the two. And that little creek that joins the two ponds attracts birds by the flocks, and other wildlife. We get possums and raccoons, and everybody comes up here to drink.
I can imagine.
Well, Eric, I want to mention to you something about these impatiens here. I love impatiens, and I've always used them to add a little color here by the pond. But because they need so much water, I have started last year to plant them actually with their feet wet. So they're within the liner. They get water all the time. So are the begonias. And they have grown into mounds. And people always ask me about them. Even the bloggers from the Gardenbloggers Fling thought they would rot, which they don't. They grow beautifully, and I don't ever have to water them.
You know, that's a really creative way of adding a splash of color to a water feature. A lot of the aquatic plants that people put in ponds are different kinds of reeds, so you don't get a whole lot of color, but here you've got impatiens and begonias growing right here by the creek and in some of the ponds. And one thing I want to mention too is that the reason that these are able to survive in this environment is because of the dissolved oxygen that you have in this water that of course has many different elevation changes and is getting, you know, churned up as it goes around the corners of the creek. So, you know, you're able to pull it off in this kind of setting. If this was more of a bog, you know, there might not be enough oxygen to support plants that have their, you know, that typically can't grow in a submerged environment, but you've done a wonderful job of making it happen.
Thank you.
I think it's very fitting that we end our tour today at the place where your gardening journey began.
Yes, actually this herb garden, which has now given way to a lot of blooming perennials, started on a piece of paper. I drew this out as a grid and brought boards up here, put them together, and started to put in organic material and plants. Many of them were shared from friends to get this party started, to get this garden started, really.
I think that's a great way to start gardening. I tell people all the time that when you're dealing with a challenging site, you know, new construction or a place where there's not a whole lot of topsoil, to start off with a raised bed, it could be just as simple as some, you know, some 2x6 lumber, and then to backfill it with a high quality garden soil. Oftentimes it's just going to be too difficult to till into that hard red clay until the roots from the plants have started penetrating down into it. And it's much easier in the next year to incorporate these soils and start adding more organic matter. So raised beds with a great garden soil, excellent way to start. Mm-hmm. Also, while we're here, I want you to tell us about some of the plants that have worked particularly well for you or ones that are favorites of yours.
Well, for one thing, this rose campion is an absolute favorite. It blooms for a long time, puts out a lot of really brilliant blooms, is easy to grow, fairly drought tolerant. Love it, absolutely love it. Another one is the hardy begonia, which is also a very, it's actually a happy shade plant, and we do have a lot of shade here. Mm-hmm. The foliage has this amazing texture. The underneath is red, so if planted right, you can get this glow, especially in the afternoon when the sun hits it. Another favorite is the leatherleaf viburnum. The texture of the leaves is amazing. I absolutely love it. I actually use it to press it into clay and concrete. And the blossoms go from light pink to white and then turn into these clusters of red berries and later blackish berries. So all season long, this one is just a stunner.
It is a marvelous plant. Well, Damaris, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated spending the day with you, and it's so inspiring to see your creativity and the way that you've really worked your personality into what is an amazing garden. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for visiting.
Another show, another amazing garden. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we've enjoyed producing it. If you watch the show, you know we travel the country visiting beautiful gardens. Well, we have a surprise in store for several in the audience. To learn more about the surprise, visit our website at GardenSmart.com.